Well, the international break is over, and that can only mean one thing. Premier League football is returning, and I, for one, am very excited for it. Now, I love watching England every now and then, but, you know, sometimes you just miss your club. So that's what we're doing today. Premier League football is returning, and we're going to predict Game Week 29. But first, as we normally do, we're going to take a look back at Game Week 28, see if we got any right. I think you already know the answer. So we're going to start off with the Friday fixture of Nottingham Forest versus Newcastle. I predicted 2-1 to Nottingham Forest. It's actually 2-1 to Newcastle. It was an absolutely dreadful performance from Forest and the ref. But I think Forest was slightly worse on the day, as Forest failed to make it 10 unbeaten games in the league at home. Though to be honest, neither side were amazing. Newcastle just had that bit more quality in them, and you know, fair enough. Of the two teams, I think Newcastle deserved the win, but that referee was shocking, man. Absolutely shocking. Then move on to Saturday's fixture. We start off with Brentford versus Leicester. And I predicted 2-0 to Brentford. It's actually a 1-1 draw. And it was a brilliant corner routine from Brentford that opened to the scoring. But Leicester, they were very unlucky not to claim all 3 points, to be honest. They applied quite a lot of pressure to Brentford, but just couldn't break them down. I think Leicester played well, all things considered, but you know, Brentford held strong. And that's something they're really good at doing this season, so you know, fair play. Then move on to Southampton versus Tottenham. Now I predicted 2-0 to Tottenham. It's actually a 3-0 draw. Now Spurs bottled what should have been a comfortable 3-1 win over the Saints. And it also saw Conte rip into a squad afterwards, as I'm sure we've all seen by now. It was a brilliant fight back from Southampton though, and honestly just dreadful from Tottenham how they could let such a lead slip over a side that are pretty much nailed on for relegation. So yeah, it's kind of mad, but fair play from Southampton for, you know, fighting and equalising. And then we move on to Aston Villa versus Bournemouth. I predicted 2-1 to Villa. It's actually 3-0. And Villa looked strong as they eased past the Cherries. It was some brilliant plays that ensured Villa kept all 3 points in Birmingham. And yeah, they didn't recreate the start of the season, which I think was probably their main aim. Villa looked a lot better than they did then. Emery's got them playing some brilliant football. I think they were always destined to beat Bournemouth. And then move on to Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Leeds United. Now I predicted a 0-0 draw. It's actually 4-2. And I remember saying that these teams, you know, they don't really score that many goals. And then this goes and happens. A 6-goal thriller, which also saw 2 Wolves players see red. Good news for us, I'll say that. Oh. And it was an amazing performance from Leeds to open the scoring. And, you know, they maintained their lead throughout the match to claim a very vital 3 points. And then move on to Chelsea versus Everton. I predicted 2-1 to Chelsea. It's actually 2-2. And then very important point for Everton, they grabbed a last-minute equaliser against Chelsea. Chelsea once again dropped points at home to a side which would be around the relegation zone otherwise. I'm not sure what they're doing. I'm not sure what they're teaching them guys over there, but they do keep losing to teams which they really should be beating. And like Southampton, Everton, I don't know what's going on over there, man. And then move on to the Sunday fixture of Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. I predicted 3-0 to Arsenal. It's actually 4-1, so I got the margin correct at least. And the Gunners continue to stake their claim to the Premier League title as they blew past Palace. It was a very dominant performance from Arsenal, as we've seen throughout the majority of the season, and it actually saw Vieira lose his job. And then they brought in Roy Hodgson. Brilliant from Arsenal as usual though. Those have been my predictions for the last game week 28. It was a bit of a short game week because some sides had FA Cup fixtures to fulfill. But yeah, still a pretty entertaining week nonetheless, got some crazy results. We look forward to game week 29. It's a double game week, so that's a lot of fixtures. So let's just jump into it. So we're going to start off with the Saturday fixtures and Manchester City versus Liverpool. What a match to kick off the weekend. Man City looked to keep battling Arsenal for that top spot, so really could not afford to drop more points as we come to the tail end of the season. Liverpool are battling for a top 4 spot as well to ensure that they get another season of European football under their belt. Manchester City will be looking to rectify the 1-0 loss they suffered at Anfield back in October. And going on their recent form and the insane goal scoring form of Haaland, it's looking likely. Liverpool have picked up form in recent weeks though. However, they did lose to Bournemouth just before the break, which, you know, wasn't the best result for them. I'm going to say 2-1 to Manchester City. We know Liverpool can turn up and perform, but they haven't been the best side away from home this season. Man City are a very, very strong side and have only dropped points once in their last 6 league matches. Liverpool have looked nothing like the side which took it to the last day against City last season, but, you know, it's kind of an off-season for them, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And I think City will just manage to beat this Liverpool side. It'll be a very tight clash though. I know Liverpool will turn up despite their lacklustre season so far, but I just think City have too much for them, I think. But I thought that when they faced each other at Anfield, so who actually knows? But something's telling me City they'll take this one at least. And then move on to Bournemouth versus Fulham. The two promoted sides are experiencing much different seasons, with Fulham challenging for European football while Bournemouth are battling relegation. I think at least one of those was expected though, to be fair. Bournemouth have grabbed shock results this season, but they've also not been that great. Fulham have been the far better of the two sides, I think. Challenging for Europe normally shows you're doing quite well, but their form has dropped off a bit recently. Fulham will also be without key players Willian and Mitrovic after that really weird red card fiasco in the FA Cup. Mitrovic did deserve punishing for pushing the ref, there's no doubt about that, but yeah, you just should have acted like that, really, realistically. So it's looking like Bournemouth have really got an opportune chance to beat Fulham here, but it's tough to call because they are two very important players for Fulham, but they're not the only two important players, and Bournemouth, they're not the greatest side either. I'm going to say 1-0 to Fulham. I think Fulham will manage to grab 3 points on the coast. The Cottagers will definitely feel the loss of Willian and Mitrovic, there's no doubt about that, but they do have quality within their squad to see off the Cherries. While the Cherries do have a good squad, I just cannot see them beating Fulham, even without those two players. It's crazy, but I think Fulham are definitely the stronger side here, and they shouldn't have too much problem beating Bournemouth. And then move on to Nottingham Forest versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now this is a very important match for both sides, as while both are currently out of the relegation zone, they are both very close to it as well. Forest's results haven't been great in recent times, and as a result of it, they've slid down the table, currently sitting 2 points above the relegation zone. Now Wolves are 3 points above the relegation zone, but are still within its clutches too, so it really is a 6-pointer for both sides. Forest are generally better at home, and will be looking to start another winning run at the City Ground to hopefully carry them through the rest of the season. Both Wolves and Forest are quite evenly matched sides, so it should be a very fiery clash, especially after the Carabao Cup antics. I'm going to say 1-0 to Forest. I do think Forest will just edge past Wolves. The tension between these two sides will be high, especially after the aforementioned Carabao Cup, so I'm looking forward to some fiery performances. Forest have been blessed with very important players returning from injury recently, such as Taiwo Awoniyi and Musa Niakate, both back from injury, and Musa played in the last match as well. So it's good to have those back. I can see them being very important for the remainder of the season. Koyate as well is also in training, who was actually quite good for us before, the incident in the World Cup. Wolves are also missing 2 players through the red card in the last match we saw, so it's going to be a very interesting clash, I think. And I'm sure the City Ground will be rocking too. Lopetegui has got Wolves playing some better football, but they aren't on an amazing run of form either, so it's going to be a huge match for either side. And both teams have potential to take it, but I do think Forest will just edge a win. It'll be a very tight match though. Tensions will be high for both teams, I reckon, so yeah, it's going to be a good watch anyway. And then move on to Crystal Palace versus Leicester City. Crystal Palace have decided to drag Roy Hodgson out of retirement to hopefully save their season. They're currently 12th, but they do risk sliding into the relegation zone if they don't start picking up points. And honestly, I feel sorry for him, to be honest. It's not looking good. Leicester City, on the other hand, are just sitting outside of the relegation zone by a point. They've not really had a good run of games, so yeah, they haven't picked up the points they need to hopefully survive. Leicester are sitting just a point outside of the relegation zone, have not been enjoying a good run of games. Grabbing points here and there for sure, but they need a lot more if they want to survive. The problem with Palace though is their inability to score goals, and I really do not see how Hodgson will fix this. It'll be interesting to see how they set up under the new gaffer. He managed them before Vieira, I believe, so I doubt we'll see much change from that Palace side, but different players. It'll be interesting to see how he sets up and if he can fix that goal scoring problem at all. Personally, I don't think it will happen. I think Leicester will beat them 1-0, and despite being at home, I can see Leicester taking all 3 points. Palace have not been playing great football, and I don't think Roy will change that. I don't think he's built for this anymore. Well, Leicester haven't been great recently. Recent form has not been good at all. They definitely have what's needed to see off Palace in their own backyard, and just let my man retire, please. He doesn't need this. And then we move on to Arsenal versus Leeds United. Now this is the top of the league Gunners hosting a Leeds side currently sitting 2 points above the relegation zone, only in 14th through goal difference. Arsenal have been a different beast this season, deservedly perched at the top of the table, and they shouldn't really have much of an issue with the Leeds at the Emirates. Leeds have grabbed surprise results this season, but I just cannot see them beating this Arsenal side. It is leagues above what Leeds are doing at the moment. Leeds are also suffering from pretty big injury blows, which only makes this clash a lot tougher for them. I'm saying 3-0 to Arsenal. I think it'll be another demolition job from the Gunners as they look to secure that Premier League title. Leeds are in search of vital points to secure a Premier League football for another season, but that'll be a tall order against this Arsenal side. It's not looking good for them either. And then move on to Brighton Hove Albion versus Brentford. Now this is another top half clash as 7th host 8th, with both teams being pretty evenly matched this season. But Brighton just being more prolific when it comes to goal scoring. The Bees and Seagulls are level on points, with Brighton having 2 games in hand over their rivals. Well, over their, I guess the owners are rivals, so we could call them rivals, I guess. Brentford did beat Brighton in the reverse fixture back in October, but Brighton are looking like the better side at this point in the season. Both teams are full of quality players and been very successful in the market, building very good sides from players which were pretty unknown for quite a few of us football fans, I guess. They've both been able to successfully compete in the Premier League, which I think is a model more teams should be looking to emulate because they're doing very well for themselves at the moment. I'm saying 3-1 to Brighton. I do think that Brighton will dominate this match. Their side has more quality than this Brentford side, and I feel that they have more goal scorers than them. It's 2. The Bees do have goal scorers, there's no doubt about that, and they have quite a few of those too, but Brighton just have more who are being more prolific this season. I'd never count Brentford out, but this Brighton side are looking much better at the moment. Either way though, it should be a good game, and I'll definitely be tuning in. Well, I say that, I'll be at the Forest match, but I'll watch it back. And for the final Saturday fixture, we've got Chelsea versus Aston Villa. The pensioners host the Villains at Stamford Bridge, still looking to kickstart their campaign to salvage a European finish. Running the last 10 games of the season looking to kickstart a campaign is not something I thought I'd be saying for Chelsea, but here we are. Both teams sacked their respective managers this season, but since hiring new ones, they've been experiencing different levels of success. Under Emery, Villa have drastically improved in many aspects and are actually currently level on points with Chelsea. Potter meanwhile has not gotten Chelsea playing like you'd expect, dropping points against teams that they should be beating, as I said earlier on, and at the moment look quite a ways away from finishing a European spot this season. I don't know if they can do it. I don't know if they have it in them to fight for Europe from their current position, but you never know, crazier things have happened. Seeing the way that Emery has gotten Villa playing has been very impressive, and I think they are very capable of causing another upset at Stamford Bridge. Is it really an upset when it keeps happening though? I don't know. I'm saying 2-1 to Villa. I think Emery has gotten Villa playing some good football. They're a very potent attacking threat when going forward. I don't know if Chelsea will be able to deal with that. Chelsea have had moments where they've looked good, but Villa's form has been much more stable and they look much more capable of beating this Chelsea side in London. That's what I'm going to say. Chelsea have been very hot and cold recently, and I just think Villa have got more about them at the moment, so I'm backing Villa here. And then move on to the Sunday fixture, and we'll start off with West Ham United versus Southampton. Now this is a big relegation scrap, as bottom of the table travel to 18th placed West Ham for a huge relegation clash. A win would lift either side out of the relegation zone as things stand. Both teams have not been in great form this season, and that's reflected in their current league positions. The Saints have been through 2 managers this season, whereas Moyes' position is still under pressure at the Hammers, and a loss could see him go. However, with it being so close to the end of the season, I'm not sure they would sack him, maybe just leave it to the end of the season, but who knows. Both sides do have quality players, but they aren't performing to the level that they need to in order to survive this league. I'm going to say a 2-2 draw. I think the points will be shared in London. The Saints have shown some great fight this season, especially against Tottenham. West Ham just haven't really done that. They still grab big results, don't get me wrong, but I just think that Southampton have been much more resilient and they look like they want to fight for it more than West Ham do. Both sides are quite evenly matched, so it should be a brilliant relegation scrap, and I would be tuning in for sure. Then move on to Newcastle United versus Manchester United, and now this is a big top 5 clash, as Newcastle look to maintain their fight for top 4, but is against a very strong Manchester United side, the same one that knocked them out of the Carabao Cup. Newcastle will be looking to reignite their form that lifted them to the top 4 from the beginning of the campaign, which they've kind of lost since. They definitely have it in them, they just need to rekindle that fire. This Manchester United side is very strong at the moment, and despite dropping points to Southampton and Liverpool, they are still a very, very strong side and a force to be reckoned with this season. The Magpies do have the bonus of being at St James's Park, but I can't really see them overcoming this United side, especially like we saw at Wembley. I'm going to say 2-1 to United. I'm going to say 2-1 to Manchester United. I do think Newcastle will do a bit better than they did at Wembley and actually score a goal. But Manchester United are a very good side at the moment and is deservedly in the top 4 spots. They're deservedly in 3rd place. But Manchester United are a very good side at the moment and are deservedly in the top 4. That's not to discount Newcastle's squad, but they're just not in great form at the moment, and the players Manchester United have are very, very impressive. Now they're without some players maybe through injury or suspension, but I just think still they've got it in them to beat Newcastle. They should do this, but you know what? I wouldn't be shocked if Newcastle won. I'll just say that. And then move on to Everton versus Tottenham Hotspur. Now Everton host Bottleham at Goodison as they look to climb further away from the relegation zone. Tottenham have parted company with Conte, and while they're not appointing a new manager to the end of the season, have been heavily linked with the former Bayern manager Nagelsmann. Stellini has been given the head coach role until the end of the season, so it'll be very interesting to see if he can get Spurs consistent results to ensure a top 4 finish. Dyche has turned around Everton's fortunes so far, and while that job isn't finished yet, his Everton side are playing some solid football. I'm saying 1-1. You could think of this as the Danjuma derby, as Danjuma was set to join Everton before he flip-flopped to Tottenham, and then hasn't really played much football, so you know, the Danjuma derby, this will be. I honestly couldn't see Everton playing out a draw against his Tottenham side. I'm not sure if it was an issue with Conte or a mentality problem at Spurs, but this Spurs side have been very hot and cold this season. Admittedly, I don't know much about Stellini, and I'm not really sure he has what it takes to change that for the remainder of the Spurs season. I think they need a big reset in the summer. Everton will make it very tough for Spurs at Goodison as they look to make it a fortress for the remainder of the season and carry them through for another season of Premier League football. And I just think they'll do it at Goodison. I don't think Spurs have it in them to go to Goodison and win, which is something I did not think I'd be saying this season, but Dyche has turned them around. Fair play. And then we move on to Tuesday's fixtures, and we start off with Leeds United versus Nottingham Forest. Now this is a huge clash between two sides looking to distance themselves from the relegation zone, and no matter how results go at the weekend, this will still be the case. Both sides are suffering from injuries. Now it's arguably Leeds that are worse off in the injury department, with Adams and Webber out injured and Gnonto in doubt for this clash. For once, injuries have slightly favoured Forest, which is something I never thought I'd say this season. Forest though have been shocking away this season. I think we've got one win away this whole season. We're 10 games away from the finish, so yeah, not looking great. I mean, we won our first away game in January. That says a lot about our season, I think. It was Wanye who grabbed that vital goal at Southampton, and he should be in the running for this match too. We definitely need him back for sure. Forest put Leeds to the sword at the City ground, but that was under Marsh, and it was actually the job that got him sacked, so I can see it being a much harder match here, especially at Elland Road. I'm saying 1-1. I think that both sides will share the points here. Despite the losses, Leeds still have some quality players, and so do Forest of course. And on paper, both sides are quite similar, but football is played on grass, so that doesn't really come into it. I think Forest will hang on and ensure they get something from this very important match. We've looked decent at times away, that Brighton performance especially, but that was quite a while back now. We've been awful away since then, so yeah, I think if we can grab a point here, it'll be very, very important, but we need to go for wins away, and we just can't do it at the moment. And then move on to Bournemouth versus Brighton and Hove Albion. Now this is a very important match for both sides as the Cherries host Brighton. Brighton are on a quest for European football, whereas Bournemouth are on a quest for Premier League survival. Bournemouth have already caused upsets at the Vitality this season, so the stage is set for another one. But this Brighton side is something else. Brighton under De Zerbi have been playing some brilliant football, and deserve to be in contention for European football, with many of their players being in brilliant form. Bournemouth on the other hand haven't been great this season, but have good players within the squad. I'm saying 3-1 to Brighton. I can't see Brighton having much trouble against Bournemouth. While there have been upsets at the Vitality this season, I don't think Bournemouth will be able to replicate that against Brighton. Brighton do have a wealth of goal scorers within their ranks, whereas Bournemouth, they only really have one or two. So it's going to be a very tough match for Bournemouth, and it's going to be very tough for them to keep Brighton at bay. And then move on to Leicester City versus Aston Villa. Now this is another huge match for Leicester as they're firmly in the grasp of the relegation zone, and recent performances don't favour them. As I said previously, Aston Villa under Emery have been playing some really effective attacking football, and with how Leicester look at the moment, they should be able to exploit any errors that may happen. Leicester need to start picking up points, but even with vital players like Maddison back, they don't look like they're going to be doing that anytime soon. I'm saying 2-0 to Villa. I think Villa will be able to deal with Leicester and take all 3 points back to Birmingham. Despite the goal scorers Leicester have, Villa have looked more and more solid at the back in recent matches, so I can really see them keeping Leicester out and doing a good job at shutting them down. I can see Villa, shutting down Leicester's attack while Villa's attack just runs the defence ragged, so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. And then move on to Chelsea versus Liverpool. Now this is a clash of two big sides that haven't been enjoying that much success than they normally would. Liverpool have had it better than Chelsea, currently sitting 6th while the London side are 10th. And both teams haven't had a great campaign this season. But there's been a slight uptick in form from Liverpool, which has seen them rise to 6th place. Chelsea looked to be starting a run when they won 2 games on the trot, but since dropping points to Everton, that run has stalled. Liverpool are not a side you want to face in that scenario. I'm saying 2-1 to Liverpool. It's another match at Stamford Bridge that Chelsea aren't likely to win. Liverpool look like the better side out of the two and should be able to beat this Chelsea team. Potter has yet to get this Chelsea side playing effectively, and looks like more drop point for the pensioners. Then we move on to the Wednesday fixtures, and we start off with West Ham United versus Newcastle United. Now this is another massive clash for West Ham in their quest for survival, as they face a very tough Newcastle side. Newcastle have had a dip in form recently, especially from how they were playing earlier in the season, but they're still a very good side and will definitely provide West Ham with problems. Newcastle will be playing to keep hold of European football and shouldn't have too much trouble facing this West Ham side in London. Depending on the result with Southampton, this could also be a match without Moyes in charge, but time will only tell. I'm going to say 3-1 to Newcastle United. I don't think West Ham will trouble Newcastle too much. As I've said, Newcastle have been in a bit of dip recently, but they're still a very good side and have put that cup loss behind them. I'll be looking to end the season on a positive note. West Ham have also one eye on European football, so their complete focus is not on surviving in the Premier League, which could make this more difficult for them. And finally, Manchester United versus Brentford. Manchester United hosted this side that shocked them at the start of the season, but this side looks miles different from the team that lost 4-0 in August. Ten Hag has implemented his philosophy, and we've seen brilliant football they're capable of. Brentford have not had a bad season either, but they're far better at home than away. So it'll be a very tough match for the Bees in Manchester, which is strange because Manchester love Bees. I'm going to say 2-1 to Manchester United. I can't see Brentford taking any points from this one, but they will make it easy for the Red Devils. They do have a couple players who will threaten Manchester United for sure. Ivan Toney is a big one of them, but I don't think they'll have enough to grab any points. United are very threatening going forward. I'll make it very hard for the Brentford back line, but I think that's to be expected at this point. Those have been my Premier League predictions for Game Week 29. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have any predictions of yourself, please leave them in the comments below. I always enjoy seeing what you guys are thinking. I've been O2GT, and hopefully I can get more predictions right this week. Please, Forest. Please. That's all I want. That's all I want, guys. That's all I want. Please. Oh my god, please. 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 Please.